The radio crackle was static as Detective Lieutenant Marcus Stone stared at the case files spread across his desk like pieces of a puzzle that had frustrated him. For 3 years, 15 members of the Blackwood crime syndicate had been moving $50 million worth of heroin through the city, while 5 of the department's most experienced detectives had failed to make a single arrest that would stick Parker Connor a 26-year old patrol officer with sandy brown hair, green eyes, and exactly 8 months on the force sat in the corner of the briefing room taking notes that nobody would ever read his 5 feet 11 inches frame. Seemed almost boyish compared to weathered veterans around him, but something in his focused attention suggested he was absorbing every detail with unusual intensity while the experienced detectives discussed theories they had explored countless times before. Stone's voice carried the frustration of someone who had built his reputation on solving impossible cases only to meet his match in an organization that seemed to anticipate every move the police made. 3 years of surveillance, undercover operations, coordinated raids. And we got nothing to show for it except dead ends and lawyers who get their clients released before we finish the paperwork. He slammed a photograph of Vincent Blackwood onto the table. This man has been importing heroin from 3 different countries, distributing it through a network we can't penetrate, and washing money through businesses that disappear faster than we can investigate them. Detective Ray Murphy, a stocky 48-year-old with gray hair and 25 years of experience, leaned back in his chair with obvious defeat. Every time we get close, they vanish like smoke. Every informant goes silent. Every lead dies before we can follow it. He gestured toward a map covered with red pins marking known Blackwood operations. They got someone feeding them information, someone who knows our moves before we make them. Sergeant Lisa Chin, a sharp-eyed Asian woman with 15 years in narcotics enforcement, nodded agreement. We checked internal security, twice run background investigations on everyone with access to case information, and still they stayed 2 steps ahead. Her voice carried professional frustration. Either they have the best intelligence network in criminal history, or someone in law enforcement is keeping them informed. Detective Tom Harrison, a tall, thin man with prematurely white hair and a reputation for never giving up, added his assessment. The Blackwood organization operates like a military unit, coordinated, precise, and disciplined. He pointed to surveillance photos showing various Blackwood associates. They use encrypted communications, change locations constantly, and maintain operational security that would impress federal agencies. Parker listened to discussion while studying crime scene photographs that told stories of violence and intimidation. Of the Blackwood Syndicate didn't just sell drugs, they controlled territory, eliminated competition, and corrupted officials with a combination of money and fear that had proven more effective than traditional law enforcement methods. Could counter his young face, showed no emotion, but his mind was processing patterns that the veteran detectives might have missed due to their extensive experience with conventional criminal behavior. Welcome to Those Who Left a Trace, where we uncover the extraordinary stories of ordinary people who achieve the impossible when everyone else has given up. Before we dive into this incredible tale of determination, intuition, and the kind of breakthrough that changes everything, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button to join our community of truth seekers. Stone continued his briefing with the weight of someone whose professional reputation depended on solving cases that had stumped his entire department. The mayor is breathing down the chief's neck. The media is asking why we can't stop $50 million worth of poison from flooding our streets. And Internal Affairs is suggesting that our failures might be due to corruption rather than incompetence. He looked around the room at faces that reflected years of dedication to law enforcement. We need a breakthrough, and we need it fast, because if we don't deliver results, soon this case is going federal. Murphy voiced what everyone was thinking. Federal agents won't have any better luck than we've had. Blackwood's organization is too sophisticated for conventional investigation techniques. He gestured toward files containing 3 years of failed operations. They survived DA task forces, FBI surveillance, and joint operations with multiple agencies. Chin added her perspective. As someone who understood the complexities of modern drug trafficking, Blackwood isn't running a street corner operation. This is international organized crime with connections to suppliers, distributors, and money laundering networks that span multiple continents. She showed photographs of suspected Blackwood properties. They own legitimate businesses that provide cover for illegal activities, and they've invested drug profits in ways that make their money nearly impossible to trace. Harrison had been studying financial records that revealed the scope of Blackwood's operations. Bank records show suspicious transactions involving dozens of shell companies that exist only on paper, property transfers that make no economic sense, and cash deposits that exceed the reported income of businesses by factors of 10. His analysis painted a picture of criminal sophistication that exceeded anything local law enforcement typically encountered. Parker raised his hand, tentatively drawing skeptical glances from detectives who had decades more experience. "Sir, I've been reviewing the case files, and I noticed something that might be worth considering." His voice was respectful, but confident, suggesting he had found something that others had missed. Stone's response carried barely concealed irritation. "Connor, you've been on the force for 8 months. This case has been worked by some of the best detectives in the department." He gestured toward veteran investigators. "What could you possibly have noticed that experienced professionals haven't already considered?" Murphy's tone was condescending, but not entirely dismissive. "Kid, we appreciate your enthusiasm, but complex criminal investigations require years of experience to understand." Properly, he looked at the case files. "What you're seeing as patterns are probably just coincidences that look significant to someone who hasn't learned to distinguish between relevant connections and random events." Chun was more direct in her skepticism. "Connor, this isn't patrol work where you respond to calls and write reports." She indicated the surveillance photographs. "Criminal investigation involves understanding psychology, motivation, and operational methods that take years to master." Harrison added his assessment. "Rookie officers often think they see connections that experienced investigators have already evaluated and dismissed." His tone suggested patience rather than hostility. "The patterns you think you've identified have probably been analyzed multiple times by people with decades experience in criminal behavior." Parker remained calm despite the dismissive responses. "I understand, sir, but I've been studying the timeline of Blackwood operations, and I think there might be a geographical pattern that corresponds to specific dates." He pulled out a notebook filled with handwritten observations. "The raid's locations seem to follow a sequence that might be predictable if we map them against calendar events." Stone's expression showed polite disinterest. "Connor, we've analyzed geographical patterns, temporal sequences, and operational logistics more thoroughly than any case in department history." He gestured toward computer printouts. "We have FBI behavioral analysts who specialize in criminal pattern recognition, and they haven't found anything useful." But something in Parker's persistence made Chin look more closely at his notebook. "What kind of pattern are you talking about, Connor?" she asked with professional curiosity that overrode her initial skepticism. "Show me what you think you found." Parker spread out a hand-drawn map that showed Blackwood operations plotted against dates and times with connections that weren't immediately obvious. Every major operation happens within 72 hours of a specific type of municipal event. He explained city council meetings, budget hearings, zoning board decisions, his finger trace lines between locations. They're not random, they're timed to coincide with periods when city officials and police resources are focused on other priorities. Murphy examined the map with growing interest. "That's actually not something we considered before," he admitted. "We've been looking at drug trafficking patterns, criminal behavior models, and operational security, but not municipal calendar coordination." Harrison nodded slowly. "If they're timing operations to coincide with city business, that suggests a level of planning and local knowledge that goes beyond typical organized crime." He studied Parker's timeline. It would also explain how they avoid police attention during critical phases of their operations. Stone was beginning to see possibilities in Parker's analysis. "Connor, if you're right about this pattern, it might give us a way to predict their next move." He looked at the municipal calendar. "What's coming up that would fit your timeline?" Parker consulted his notes with growing confidence. "The annual police budget hearing is scheduled for next Thursday." He said, based on the pattern, that would be optimal timing for a major Blackwood operation, because media attention and police leadership will be focused on defending department funding rather than active investigations. Chun realized the implications immediately. If they're planning something big for next week, we have less than 72 hours to prepare. She looked at Stone. We could set up surveillance on locations that fit the geographical pattern. Murphy was becoming convinced that Parker's analysis had merit. This is the first new lead we've had in 18 months. He said, even if it's only partially correct, it gives us something to work with instead of just reacting to crimes after they happen. Harrison agreed. Connor's analysis suggests they're not just avoiding police attention, they're actively timing operations to exploit predictable gaps in our coverage. He studied the pattern more closely. That level of sophistication would explain why conventional investigation methods haven't been effective. Stone made a decision that would change the direction of the investigation. Connor, you're off patrol duty effective immediately. He announced, you're joining this task force as a full-time investigator. The promotion was unprecedented for someone with only 8 months' experience, but the veteran detectives had run out of conventional options. What would you do in this young officer's boots? Comment below if you think Parker Connor is about to crack a case that stumped veteran detectives for 3 years. Over the next 48 hours, Parker's geographical pattern theory was tested against 3 years of Blackwood operations with results that surprised even the most skeptical detectives. Every major drug shipment, warehouse raid, and money laundering operation had indeed occurred within 72 hours of municipal events that drew police attention away from criminal investigation and coordinated with federal databases to verify the pattern, while Murphy analyzed surveillance footage from the predicted time frames. Harrison worked with financial crimes investigators to track money movements that corresponded to Parker's timeline. The breakthrough came when Parker identified the next likely target based on his analysis. The old maritime warehouse district fits the geographical pattern, and the timing coincides perfectly with the budget hearing. He explained the assembled task force, Blackwood, has used waterfront locations for 3 previous major operations, and this area provides multiple escape routes plus legitimate maritime traffic for cover. Stone authorized full surveillance of the maritime district while maintaining normal police operations to avoid alerting Blackwood's intelligence network. If Connor is right, we'll have the first solid intelligence on Blackwood operations in 3 years. He told his team, if he's wrong, we'll have wasted 72 hours on a rookie's theory. Chun positioned undercover officers throughout the warehouse district using surveillance techniques that would detect criminal activity without alerting experienced criminals to police presence. Blackwood's people are professionals who know how to spot surveillance, she warned. We have one chance to observe their operations without compromising the investigation. Murphy coordinated with Harbor Patrol and Customs Enforcement to monitor maritime traffic, while Harrison worked with financial crimes to track suspicious transactions that might indicate money laundering activity. The scale of the operation reflected how seriously the department was taking Parker's analysis despite his limited experience. Parker himself was assigned to a surveillance van equipped with communication equipment that would allow him to coordinate with multiple teams while observing the suspected Blackwood operation site. His role had transformed from patrol officer to Central Intelligence Coordinator in a matter of days, of promotion that veteran officers typically required years to achieve. Thursday morning arrived with fog rolling in from the harbor, providing natural cover for both criminal operations and police surveillance. The budget hearing was scheduled to begin at 9 o'clock, drawing media attention and police leadership away from active investigations. Exactly as Parker had predicted, Stone maintained radio communication with all surveillance teams while publicly appearing at the budget hearing to maintain the appearance of normal departmental operations. At precisely 10:30, Parker's radio crackled with confirmation that vehicles matching Blackwood surveillance profiles were moving toward a maritime district, multiple black sedans approaching from 3 different directions. Chin reported from her concealed position, license plates match vehicles identified in previous Blackwood operations. Murphy's voice came through the communication system minutes later. Harbor Patrol reports unusual maritime activity, large cargo vessel approaching the warehouse pier without proper customs clearance. His tone carried excitement mixed with professional caution. This matches the pattern Connor predicted. Harrison confirmed suspicious financial activity. Banks are reporting large cash transactions involving shell companies linked to properties in the Maritime District. He announced the timing and amounts correspond exactly to previous Blackwood money laundering operations. Stone made the decision to move closer to the operation site while maintaining surveillance protocols. All teams maintain position until we have visual confirmation of criminal activity. He ordered, "We need evidence that will hold up in court, not just suspicious behavior." Parker watched through binoculars as a cargo vessel docked at the warehouse pier and began unloading containers that required forklift equipment to move. "Sir, this looks like the major shipment we've been trying to intercept," he reported. "Container size and handling requirements suggest quantities that would be worth millions of dollars." Chun confirmed the arrival of additional Blackwood personnel. Vehicles are positioning around the warehouse perimeter in defensive formation. She observed, "This is operational security for a major criminal enterprise, not routine business activity." Murphy reported that Harbor Patrol had identified the cargo vessel as registered under a shell company with connections to international drug trafficking. This ship has been flagged by DEA as suspicious, but never had evidence to justify boarding. He announced, "If we can document criminal activity, here it could lead to federal charges." Harrison's financial surveillance had detected the activation of money laundering networks. Wire transfers are happening in real time to accounts in 3 different countries. He reported, "We're watching $50 million being moved through illegal channels." Stone realized they were witnessing the largest Blackwood operation in 3 years. All teams prepare for coordinated intervention. He ordered, "Wait for my signal, but be ready to move immediately when I give the word." Parker maintained his observation post, while veteran detectives positioned themselves for the arrest operation that would justify 3 years of investigations analysis had led them to this moment, but the success of the operation would depend on the experience and skill of seasoned law enforcement professionals. The containers were open, revealing quantities of heroin that exceeded the largest drug seizures in city history. Parker estimated the street value at $50 million, making this the most significant narcotics interdiction in departmental history. "Sir, this is a shipment that could cripple Blackwood operations," he reported. Chun watched as Blackwood personnel began transferring drugs from containers to vehicles that would distribute the heroin throughout the city. "We have visual confirmation of criminal activity that justifies immediate intervention." She announced. Murphy observed Vincent Blackwood himself directing the operation from position near the warehouse in trance. "Target is on site," he reported. "This is our chance to arrest the head of the organization, along with his entire operation." Harrison confirmed that money laundering was actively occurring. Financial transactions are happening simultaneously with the drug transfer. He announced, "We can charge them with both narcotics trafficking and organized money laundering." Stone gave the order that would culminate 3 years of investigation. "All teams move now," he commanded. "Coordinate arrest procedures and secure all evidence." The arrest operation unfolded with precision that reflected months of planning and years of experience. 23 law enforcement officers moved simultaneously to surround the warehouse, while Harbor Patrol secured the cargo vessel and prevented escape by water. Federal agents who had been standing by moved to freeze financial accounts and prevent money laundering from continuing. Parker watched from his surveillance position as the largest criminal operation in city history was dismantled through teamwork between patrol officers, detectives, federal agents, and financial crimes investigators. The success of the operation validated his geographical pattern analysis, while demonstrating the importance of experience and coordination in complex law enforcement activities. Vincent Blackwood was arrested along with 14 associates while attempting to flee the warehouse with evidence that included $50 million worth of heroin, financial records documenting money laundering operations, and communication equipment that would lead to additional arrests of Blackwood associates throughout the country. Chun coordinated the evidence collection process that would ensure successful prosecution. "We have physical evidence, financial records, and surveillance documentation that will support federal charges," she announced. "This case will dismantle the entire Blackwood organization." Murphy worked with federal agents to process arrests and coordinate with prosecutors who would handle the complex legal proceedings required for organized crime prosecution. Connor's analysis led us to the breakthrough we Needed, he acknowledged. Without his pattern recognition, we would still be chasing ghosts. Harrison calculated the impact of the operation on Blackwood's criminal enterprise. Seizure of $50 million worth of heroin plus frozen assets from money laundering accounts will eliminate their operational funding, he reported. This organization won't recover from losses of this magnitude. Stone addressed the media later that day with news of the largest drug seizure in city history, while crediting teamwork between experienced investigators and fresh perspective from newer officers. Successful law enforcement requires both experience and innovation, he told reporters. This case demonstrates what happens when veteran professionals work with colleagues who bring new approaches to old problems. Do you think Parker Connor is about to become the youngest detective in department history? Smash that like button. If you're ready to see this breakthrough officer get the recognition he deserves. The weeks following the Blackwood arrest brought changes that transformed both Parker's career and the department's approach to complex criminal investigations. Internal Affairs completed their review of the operation and found no evidence of corruption, but significant evidence that traditional investigation methods had been inadequate for modern organized crime. The success of Parker's geographical pattern analysis led to new training protocols for criminal investigation that emphasize fresh perspectives alongside experienced judgment. Parker found himself promoted to detective third class after only 8 months on the force, making him the youngest detective in department history. His new assignment involved working with a task force that applied innovative analysis techniques to cold cases that had frustrated veteran investigators. For years, Stone recognized that Parker's success with the Blackwood case represented skills that could benefit other investigations. Chen became Parker's training supervisor with responsibility for teaching him advanced investigation techniques. While learning from his analytical approaches, experience and innovation complement each other. She explained to Parker during his first week as a detective, your pattern recognition abilities, combined with proper investigation procedures, will make you more effective than either approach alone. Murphy requested assignment to Parker's task force despite having seniority that qualified him for easier positions. Working with Connor taught me that fresh perspectives can reveal patterns that experience might overlook, he told Stone. I want to learn new approaches while contributing what I've learned in 25 years of police work. Harrison was promoted to sergeant and given responsibility for developing new investigation protocols that incorporated Parker's analytical methods throughout the department. The Blackwood case proved that traditional methods aren't sufficient for modern criminal organizations. He explained to departmental leadership, we need to train all investigators to recognize patterns that conventional wisdom might miss. Stone received commendation from the mayor and police chief for leading the investigation that dismantled the city's most sophisticated criminal organization. His reputation was enhanced by his willingness to recognize merit regardless of experience level and his ability to coordinate complex operations that required both veteran skill and innovative thinking. The trial of Vincent Blackwood and his associates became the largest organized crime prosecution in state history, with evidence gathered during Parker's operation, leading convictions that would keep the defendants in federal prison for decades. Prosecutors credited the investigation with providing evidence that exceeded anything they had seen in cases involving international drug trafficking and money laundering. Federal agencies requested Parker's assistance with pattern analysis for similar cases in other cities. His geographical and temporal analysis techniques were incorporated into training programs for federal investigators who dealt with sophisticated criminal organizations that had previously seemed impossible to predict or intercept. 6 months after Blackwood arrest, Parker was invited to speak at the National Police Academy about innovative investigation techniques for modern law enforcement. His presentation emphasized the importance of fresh perspectives in solving complex cases, while acknowledging the essential role of experienced professionals in successful operations. The Maritime District operation had seized enough heroin to supply the city's drug market for 2 years, while frozen assets from money laundering accounts totaled over $100 million, making it the most financially significant law enforcement success in regional history. Community leaders credited the operation with reducing drug-related crime throughout the metropolitan area. Chun continued working with Parker on cold cases that had remained unsolved for years, using his pattern recognition abilities to identify connections that traditional investigation methods had missed. Their success rate exceeded department averages for seasoned detective partnerships, and their methods were studied by law enforcement agencies throughout the country. Murphy found that working with younger colleagues enhanced his own effectiveness by challenging assumptions that experience had made automatic. Connor taught me to question patterns I'd accepted as normal. He explained to other veteran detectives, combining experience with fresh analysis produces better results than either approach alone. Harrison's new investigation protocols were adopted by police departments in 12 states and became part of federal training programs for organized crime investigation. His work with Parker demonstrated that innovation in law enforcement required both respect for proven methods and willingness to explore new approaches. Stone was promoted to captain and given responsibility for developing advanced investigation techniques for the entire Metropolitan Police Force. His success with the Blackwood case established him as a leader who could balance respect for experience with recognition of merit regardless of traditional qualifications. Parker's analytical methods were incorporated into criminal justice curriculum at universities throughout the region. His case study became required reading for students studying modern law enforcement techniques, and his geographical pattern analysis was adopted by federal agencies dealing with international organized crime. The Blackwood organization never recovered from the maritime warehouse operation. Subsequent investigations using Parker's techniques led to additional arrests of associates throughout the country, and federal prosecutors were able to dismantle drug trafficking networks that had operated internationally for over a decade. 2 years after Blackwood arrest, Parker was promoted to detective second class and assigned to lead a task force specializing in organized crime investigation. Using innovative analytical techniques, his team included both veteran investigators and recent graduates, creating partnerships that combined experience with fresh approaches to complex criminal cases. Chun received promotion to lieutenant and became supervisor for the department's new criminal pattern analysis division, a unit created specifically to apply Parker's techniques to unsolved cases and ongoing investigations. Her role involved training investigators throughout the region in methods that combine traditional police work with innovative analytical approaches. Murphy was selected for the FBI's Advanced Criminal Investigation Program, where he taught experienced federal agents how to incorporate fresh analytical perspectives into complex organized crime cases. His partnership with Parker had demonstrated the value of cross-generational collaboration in modern law enforcement. Harrison completed his master's degree in criminal justice administration while developing investigation protocols that were adopted by law enforcement agencies nationwide. His thesis on innovative pattern recognition in organized crime investigation became standard reference material for police academies and federal training programs. Stone's promotion to assistant chief placed him in charge of all criminal investigation for the Metropolitan Police Force's leadership during the Blackwood case had demonstrated ability to recognize talent regardless of experience level and coordinate complex operations that required both veteran expertise and innovative thinking. Today, Parker Connor serves as captain of the Criminal Pattern Analysis Division, leading a team of investigators who apply innovative techniques to cases that traditional methods haven't solved. The success with the Blackwood organization established principles that are now standard practice for law enforcement agencies dealing with sophisticated criminal enterprises. The techniques developed during the Blackwood investigation have been used to solve over 200 cases involving organized crime, drug trafficking, and money laundering in cities throughout the country. Parker's geographical and temporal pattern analysis methods are taught at police academies and federal training facilities as essential skills for modern law enforcement. Vincent Blackwood and his associates remain in federal prisons serving sentences that reflect the scope of their criminal enterprise. The maritime warehouse operation eliminated international drug trafficking networks that had operated for over a decade and prevented millions of dollars worth of heroin from reaching American streets. The success of the Blackwood investigation demonstrated that effective law enforcement requires both experience and innovation. Veteran professionals provide essential knowledge and skills, while fresh perspectives can reveal patterns that conventional wisdom might miss. Parker Connor's career illustrates that merit and dedication matter more than experience level when confronting complex challenges that threaten community safety. Wait before you go. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We want to see how far this story has traveled. And hey, if the story of an underestimated rookie cop who solved the unsolvable case inspired you, hit that like so we know you're loving it.